In the gentle spring of 1957, as the people of Britain settled down in their living rooms after dinner, something strange appeared on their television screens. It was April 1st, April Fool's Day, though few people gave that much thought when they tuned into the BBC's respected current affairs program, Panorama. The presenter, Richard Dimbleby, a trusted voice of the nation, was narrating a calm, informative segment about a peculiar event in Switzerland. The report showed Swiss farmers walking among trees, gently plucking long white strands of spaghetti from branches and placing them carefully into baskets. The tone was serious, the images convincing, and the narration spoke of an unusually good spaghetti harvest that year. Due to the mild winter and the virtual disappearance of the dreaded spaghetti weevil, the world had just witnessed what would become one of the most famous and successful hoaxes in television history, the Swiss spaghetti harvest hoax. To fully understand why this prank became so legendary, we need to step back into the world of 1957. Television was still a relatively new and trusted medium. The BBC especially was seen as a pillar of truth and reliability. It was where you got your facts. Most Britons had no idea what spaghetti actually was. In post-war Britain, pasta wasn't common in households. It was an exotic delicacy reserved for the upper class or foreign travelers. For many, spaghetti came out of a tin, soaked in tomato sauce, and was thought to be some sort of processed food, not a crop. So, when the BBC showed black and white footage of Swiss women harvesting noodles from trees, it didn't strike everyone as absurd. It seemed strange, yes, but believable enough when narrated with such authority. Dimbleby's refined voice added authenticity as he described the family tradition of spaghetti harvesting and how each strand had to be carefully dried before being packed for market. The report even mentioned how the length of the spaghetti was determined by the careful breeding of the spaghetti trees, which was an explanation that seemed to make sense in its own peculiar way. After the program aired, the BBC telephone lines lit up. Viewers called in not to complain, but to ask one burning question: how could they grow their own spaghetti trees? The BBC operators were reportedly amused, yet slightly overwhelmed. Some callers were politely advised to place a sprig of spaghetti in a tin of tomato sauce and hope for the best. The mastermind behind this brilliant piece of television mischief was a man named Charles de Jager, a cameraman for the BBC. He had grown up hearing a joke from his school days that a boy who was too gullible could be told that spaghetti grew on trees. When the opportunity came to create an April Fool's segment for Panorama, de Jager decided to bring that old joke to life. He convinced his producer to let him film in Switzerland, gathered a few locals, hung strands of cooked spaghetti on tree branches, and filmed it as if it were a legitimate documentary. What made this prank so clever was how subtly it played on human psychology. The report didn't present itself as comedy. There were no winks to the camera or exaggerated gestures. It was serious, straightforward journalism, and that's exactly why it worked. The BBC's reputation gave it credibility, and the calm, factual presentation disarmed skepticism. It was a perfect illusion, crafted for a simpler time. The impact was immense. Newspapers the next day reported on the hoax, and soon the spaghetti tree segment became part of British folklore. It was hailed as the first major April Fool's joke ever broadcast on television. For years, it was replayed and discussed in journalism schools as a case study in media trust and critical thinking. Even today, some historians of media call it the greatest hoax ever pulled by a news organization. But what's even more fascinating is how the Swiss spaghetti harvest hoax found new life in the modern era, decades after its original broadcast. In the 1990s and 2000s, as the internet became a global phenomenon, this classic prank resurfaced online. People began sharing clips of the original footage, laughing at how gullible audiences of the 1950s seemed. But soon a deeper realization emerged that maybe things hadn't changed all that much. In the digital age, misinformation spreads faster than ever. Fake news, doctored videos, and viral hoaxes circulate daily, often believed by millions before being debunked. The spaghetti harvest was innocent fun, a harmless prank in a world that still trusted its media. But online, the same kind of gullibility, combined with the speed of the internet, has much more serious consequences. In a way, the repopularization of the spaghetti harvest story became symbolic. It served as a reminder of how easily people can be deceived when something is presented with confidence and authority. When the old footage began circulating on platforms like YouTube and social media, younger generations found it hilarious, yet oddly relatable. Many commented that if something equally strange were reported today, with professional visuals and a convincing voiceover, people might still fall for it. And so, the old joke took on a new meaning. What began as a 3-minute television prank in 1957 became a timeless lesson about human nature. The simplicity of the hoax, spaghetti hanging from trees, contrasts sharply with the complex digital hoaxes of our time, yet the principle remains the same. People tend to believe what they see, especially if it comes from a trusted source. In the decades since, the BBC has often reflected on the prank with fondness and humility. It stands as a historic reminder that even the most credible institutions can have a sense of humor, and that a well-crafted joke can endure through generations. Journalists today still reference the spaghetti harvest when discussing the importance of skepticism and fact-checking. Perhaps the most endearing part of the whole story is how innocent it was. No one was hurt, no one was defamed, and no one lost money. Instead, it brought smiles, laughter, and a bit of wonder into people's lives. For one day, the serious world of news allowed itself to be playful, and it captured something truly human, our ability to believe, to imagine and to laugh at ourselves. Today, nearly 70 years later, the footage still feels charming. The black and white images of farmers gently picking spaghetti from trees remain surreal and oddly beautiful. They remind us of a time when the world was simpler, when television felt magical, and when a little bit of imagination could turn pasta into a harvest. As it continues to circulate online, the Swiss spaghetti harvest hoax is no longer just an April Fool's prank. It's a cultural artifact, a mirror reflecting both the innocence of the past and the lessons of the present. It tells us that technology changes, but human curiosity and belief remain the same. Whether it's 1957 or 2025, one truth endures: never underestimate the power of a good story, especially if it's told with a straight face. And so, the legend of the spaghetti trees lives on, a delightful reminder that sometimes the most unbelievable things are the ones we want to believe the most.